Hi everybody, this is Kathleen Hinesley with Exploring Dimensions for All, and this is part 2 of chapter 20 of my book, Welcome to Infinity, Exploring Ancient and Modern Techniques for Collaborating with Otherworldly Beings. Please watch part 1 if you haven't done so already. Okay, at SRI International's Radio Physics Laboratory, Swan, Puthoff, and others initiated experiments which led to the creation of specific techniques and protocols for acquiring information about remote targets through non-physical means. The process they developed, which later came to be known as remote viewing, included various means for ensuring that information was collected on a purely psychic basis. Meanwhile, psychic experiments being conducted in the Soviet Union worried American officials, who feared that such experiments might someday pose a threat to U.S. security. Footnote 7, Remote Viewing Instructional Services, Inc., and then in parentheses, capital RVIS, Inc., in parentheses, and then in quotation marks, how did RV begin? In quotation marks, and RV is capital letters, www.rviewer.com/main/history.html, parentheses, 16 December 2001, end parentheses. And I was actually fortunate enough to study with Paul Smith, who is the person who runs Remote Viewing Instructional Services. So that was fun, but I hadn't done that when I wrote this chapter. And this is not, I'm not being sponsored, I'm not getting money for making this video, but I do want to promote the work of people who are helping other people experience the joy from remote viewing that I'm experiencing. Okay. Psychics, after all, could potentially learn of U.S. military secrets without utilizing traditional means of spying. The U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, and then in parentheses capital CIA, end parentheses, soon became interested in the possibilities offered by SRI's remote viewing procedures and contracted with the organization to provide remote viewing services. The CIA ended its involvement with remote viewing in the mid-1970s, and the Defense Intelligence Agency, in parentheses capital DIA, end parentheses, and the Army took over responsibility for the government's psychic defense efforts. Footnote 8, IBIT. Military officials shifted their focus in the late 1970s from efforts designed to discern U.S. vulnerability to psychic spying efforts to the utilization of remote viewing as a method of spying on America's enemies. Footnote 9, IBIT. In the early 1980s, the Army's Intelligence and Security Command, and this is in parentheses, capital INSCOM, end parentheses, took responsibility for remote viewing efforts. Several Department of Defense personnel subsequently received training in remote viewing at SRI International. By 1986, remote viewing efforts fell back into the hands of the DIA, and DIA is in capital letters, which began administering a remote viewing program known as Sunstreak, later renamed Stargate, in the early 1990s. In 1995, the CIA once again took responsibility for the government's remote viewing efforts. However, the CIA scrapped the program later that year. Footnote 10, IBIT. According to Paul H. Smith, a government remote viewer for 7 years, and now president of Remote Viewing Instructional Services, Inc., parentheses RVIS, comma, Inc., end parentheses, the U.S. government's remote viewing efforts had worked with such targets as, quote, strategic missile forces, political leaders, narcotics operations, research and development facilities, hostage situations, military weapons systems, secret installations, technology developments, terrorist groups, semicolon, 3 ellipsis dots, end quote, etc. That's footnote 11 IBIT. Now, it's been many, many years, so I did meet Paul Smith, and he has been teaching remote viewing for many years. And of course, he's been involved in this now more than 7, although the government program, as it was known, is now closed. News of the government's remote viewing efforts hit the American public in 1995, when work conducted by Stargate was declassified. CIA officials interviewed on ABC's Nightline on November 28, 1995, discussed the government's remote viewing efforts, but downplayed the significance of the technique as a means for accurate data collection. And this is footnote 12, Angela Thompson-Smith, Remote Perceptions, Out-of-Body Experiences, Remote Viewing, and Other Normal Abilities. And the title of that is in italics. Charlottesville Hampton Roads Publishing Company, Inc., 1998, pages 234 to 235. I also had the pleasure of training with Angela Thompson-Smith. I really enjoyed that. And she's in Nevada now. At least she was when I studied with her. Anyhow, so I'm going to be putting a link down for her below as well. But I of course, hadn't met her, didn't know anything about her at the time. And I'm not being sponsored. Okay. So let's see. So that was footnote 12. All right. Some former remote viewers charged that the true success rate of the government's remote viewing efforts was misrepresented during the Nightline interview, and have raised the possibility that comments of CIA representatives on Nightline may have been part of a, quote, disinformation campaign, end quote, footnote 13 IBID, page 237. Many people who formerly worked for the government's remote viewing programs have gone on to establish their own private remote viewing organizations. These organizations offer a range of services to companies and individuals seeking information by psychic means. Some of these organizations also provide training in remote viewing for the public. Since Swan began his efforts in the early 1970s, a variety of different techniques have been developed to facilitate remote viewing. The techniques employed vary, primarily according to how knowledge of targets is acquired by viewers and what steps are taken to ensure the accuracy of information obtained. Coordinate remote viewing, for example, involves providing viewers with numbers to identify targets and nothing more. A coordinate remote viewer preparing to visit a weapons factory in a Middle Eastern country wouldn't be told where they were going. Instead, the viewer would simply be given a number that had been assigned to a target. Initially, geographic coordinates were used to identify various targets. However, there was a concern that viewers might subconsciously guess the location they were being asked to visit if they had received previous training in utilizing geographic coordinates to find locations. Remote viewing researchers wanted to avoid front-loading viewers with information that might be utilized by the conscious mind, as this part of the mind can be prone to altering or changing perceived information. Thus, regardless of the slim likelihood that remote viewers would be able to locate exact geographic coordinates without the benefit of a map, and use of randomly generated numbers was considered a safer option and Thus, regardless of the slim likelihood that remote viewers would be able to locate exact geographic coordinates without the benefit of a map, the use of randomly generated numbers was considered a safer option and soon became the norm. Now, these randomly generated numbers, I'm departing from the reading right now, these randomly generated numbers and target coordinate numbers that do not relate to geography in any way, however they're generated, are used in scientific remote viewing, associative remote viewing, which I've studied, and controlled remote viewing, which I've studied. And so this is just kind of the norm now. Remote viewing does sometimes also refer to just general psychic information that is obtained by going to a place and understanding what's happening there by some other means. But this chapter focuses on certain kinds of techniques that are used to do remote viewing. Okay. A coordinate remote viewer, and that's what I'm calling it in the book, but it's known by many names, or this technique is used by many types of remote viewers. A coordinate remote viewer might, for example, be given the numbers 64512837 to identify a target. In a successful session, the viewer would utilize relaxation techniques and then begin perceiving information about the target that had randomly been linked with the numbers. In spite of the fact that coordinate numbers are randomly assigned, the process has been found to work amazingly well. This suggests that the subconscious mind is somehow able to simply know which numbers have been linked to various targets, regardless of whether or not the conscious mind has been informed. Associative remote viewing utilizes the same subconscious ability to link information as a means for predicting future events. The technique has even been used to make predictions about changes in the stock market, to aid in investment decisions. To facilitate an accurate prediction without front-loading information, future rising and falling stock prices are paired with unrelated objects. A decision to invest in a particular software company could, for example, be made by secretly pairing a rise in stock prices with a shoe and a decline in prices with a carrot. A remote viewer would then be asked to visualize the object that he or she would be shown in the future following a change in stock prices. A remote viewer who psychically perceived a carrot would be assumed to have predicted a decline in prices. This would be interpreted as a disincentive to invest. A perception of a shoe, on the other hand, would be taken as a prediction that stock prices are due to rise. And this is footnote 14. For a more comprehensive description of associative remote viewing, see Joseph McMonigal, and then in parentheses, Remote Viewing Secrets, a handbook, Charlottesville Hampton Roads Publishing Company, 2000, pages 84 to 87. I took a class in associative remote viewing from Paul H. Smith, so there are many other ways that you can get information about associative remote viewing. I wouldn't advise trying it at home because the way that you select the targets matters a lot. And unless you're trained and you've practiced really well, it can get really confusing because sometimes people can end up actually getting fragments of both targets and you have to learn how to hone into one. But anyway, I'm departing from the reading. Okay, so here we go. So back again. Okay. Some predictions resulting from remote viewing efforts have turned out to be quite accurate. Another remote viewing technique involves sending a person, typically referred to as an outbounder, to the site of a target that is to be viewed. The remote viewer and the outbounder both take notes on their perceptions of the target or answer identical questionnaires. The notes or answers of both parties are later compared. In some cases, remote viewers have been able to perceive future circumstances at the target site prior to the arrival of the outbounder on the scene. Footnote 15, Smith, Remote Perceptions, page 145. Yet another remote viewing method involves allowing several people to view the same target. Perceptions received by various individuals are later compiled to form a more complete picture. A variation on this theme involves asking several viewers to view the same target at different periods of time. for the purpose of obtaining historical as well as precognitive information about a site. Because the conscious mind possesses faculties for intellectual analysis and imagination, many remote viewing professionals feel that involvement of the conscious mind may actually inhibit a true reading of targets. The feeling is that accurate impressions received by the subconscious mind may later be clouded by conscious judgments and thus rendered less accurate. For this reason, remote viewing protocols are typically designed to reduce or, when possible, eliminate the role played by the conscious mind in accessing information. Utilizing random numbers to identify targets and drawing to communicate impressions are two methods by which this is sometimes accomplished. Had I unknowingly utilized a kind of remote viewing to respond to the test questions? I certainly had no conscious knowledge of the answers, and yet my hand, freed from efforts to control it consciously, had seemingly floated from question to question, stopping only to fill in answers that felt right. Perhaps it was my subspace self that had taken the test. Had I pulled the answers out of subspace itself? Brown, who received training from Major Ed Dames, a former military viewer, believes that remote viewing can be used as a means of interacting with alien species that have an interest in collaborating with us. In his book, Cosmic Voyage, Brown profiles information he has collected on two alien races, which he claims are now visiting the Earth. The Martians, an ancient race that once inhabited Mars, and the Greys. Footnote 16, Courtney Brown, PhD, Cosmic Voyage, a scientific discovery of extraterrestrials visiting Earth, New York, Penguin Books, USA, Inc., 1996. He explains that both of these races have survived large-scale environmental disasters of their own making, and stresses the importance of learning from their experiences. He believes that a variety of alien races are now eager to make contact with humans and sees scientific remote viewing, and I have a registered trademark symbol, as a way of facilitating this. In Cosmic Voyage, Brown explains that achieving an altered state of consciousness is an important prerequisite for remote viewing success. He recommends transcendental meditation, and then in parentheses, capital T, capital M, end parentheses, specifically the TM-CIDIS program, and that's SIDHIS with a capital S, as well as courses offered by the Monroe Institute to those interested in developing scientific remote viewing, and then I have a registered trademark, skills. Footnote 18, IBID, pages 250 to 255. So I actually watch YouTube videos offered by Farsight Press quite often in my daily life now. And the Farsight Institute actually offers on-site instruction at this point, from what I understand. So if you're really interested in this, you might want to look that up. Okay, here's the epilogue that ties everything together. The voices and visions of other realms experienced by so many of us, whether in dreams, waking visions, altered states of consciousness, or near-death states, speak of a universe much larger and more multifaceted than we might have imagined possible. My personal experiences and research have convinced me that we are living in a multidimensional universe composed of realities and beings existing at other frequencies of vibration. Vibration, or, quote, movement, end quote, is the structure behind both what we experience consciously and what we do not. In other words, it is our awareness of vibratory rate that keeps us aware of this reality. Changing our awareness of vibratory rate, then, is the key to travel within the space-time continuum. In the foregoing text, I have presented research undertaken by numerous scholars working in the fields of archaeology, anthropology, psychology, and other areas of study, yet to receive the benefit of an academic title. The research presented suggests that ancient and native peoples knew how to utilize natural energies such as radiation, magnetism, and sound waves to transcend time-space as we know it, and facilitate contact with dimensions and beings existing at other frequencies of vibration. Native peoples also utilized methods to effect physiological change, such as fasting, sleep deprivation, repetitive motion, and dancing, to induce altered states. I believe that these methods, as well as the utilization of naturally occurring energies, facilitate contact with other realms by stimulating brainwave changes which free the human spirit from the restrictions on perception normally associated with the waking state. Experiences occurring outside of the typical waking state, such as near-death experiences, dreams, visions, and out-of-body travel, appear to have a great deal in common, including 1. A sense of timelessness and/or an ability to access information about the past or future. 2. Encounters with non-human entities. 3. An ability to communicate telepathically. 4. An ability to access information at will and/or travel by means of thought. These similarities suggest that such experiences represent access to a greater reality, one that is typically blocked to a greater or lesser extent in waking life. Communications with otherworldly beings suggest that many of them are eager to make contact with us and have valuable information to share. Many of these beings appear to possess knowledge and skills useful for healing, farming, environmental maintenance, emotional well-being, and the attainment of higher consciousness. Native peoples actively sought collaboration with a variety of non-human entities and saw contact with them as critical to the maintenance of harmony on Earth. The importance of such collaboration becomes clear when we consider the vibratory nature of both human and non-human entities, as well as the structure of reality itself. If everything and everyone possesses a vibratory rate and can affect and be affected by vibratory rate, we are all truly connected. It appears that ancient peoples understood how to utilize energies in the surrounding environment for optimal effect, as well as how to infuse objects such as idols and sacred sites with desired energies. It is quite possible that they gained much of this knowledge from their contact with otherworldly beings. Many native ceremonies are geared toward recreating perfection that is believed to have existed at the dawn of time, when the creator spirits roamed the earth and humans moved freely through all the realms. These ceremonies seek to reestablish or recreate the original intent of the creator spirits and to bring the world back from a state of disorder to one of harmony and order, or, in a sense, renew the world. If all beings, things, natural elements, brainwaves, and even emotions possess vibration, I cannot help but wonder how we, in modern society, might benefit by reenacting some of the ceremonies our ancestors used. Could sound, rhythm, and the use of natural energies bring our planet back into a state of harmony, acting as a cure for disease, famine, and war? In modern times, pioneers such as the founders of Findhorn and Mikhail Small-Wright have utilized collaboration with non-human entities to ensure the success of agricultural and/or health endeavors, much as native peoples have for untold millennia. And out-of-body travelers and remote viewers are encountering and learning lessons from otherworldly beings throughout the time-space continuum. Experiments with sound technologies are helping us to explore new states of consciousness and enhancing opportunities for collaboration with our cosmic neighbors, ushering in new waves of knowledge once lost to the past. Untold avenues of new experience and understanding await us. Welcome to infinity. All right, Thank you so much for listening. Please give this a thumbs up if you liked it. Thank you for joining me. Please review my earlier videos and wait and check for new ones. I'll be posting more. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.